Hi guys, for those of you who have to understand conventions like SOLAS convention and MARPOL convention for your oral examination, it is important that you also familiarize yourselves with some of the terms that are used in these conventions. So understanding the international law terms are essential if you have to understand the meaning of the conventions. So today's video will discuss the meaning of the term treaty and convention, and I hope to put up more videos in future to make you understand similar terms. International law is the only universally recognized framework that applies to people everywhere. As an impartial and objective set of standards, international law is capable of handling issues involving everyone at the international level, as well as resolving disputes without prejudice or favoritism in favor of one party. The purpose of this video is to provide a basic but not exhaustive overview of the key terms employed in the international instruments binding at international law. We will be discussing terms like treaties, conventions, and in future videos I'll be discussing terms like agreements, protocols, memorandum of understanding, resolutions, adoption, ratification, amendments, so that you understand how a convention comes into force and what are the meaning of these terms as used in the convention. Although the instruments differ from each other by title, they all have common features, and international law has applied basically the same rules to all of these instruments. These rules are the result of long practice among the states which have accepted them as binding norms in their mutual relations. Therefore, they are regarded as international customary law. Today's topic is treaty, so we'll start with treaty first. Treaty is a formal agreement between two states signed by official representatives of each state. A treaty may be lawmaking in that it is the declared intention of the signatory parties to make or amend their internal laws to give effect to the treaty. The term treaty can be used as a common generic term or as a particular term which indicates an instrument with certain characteristics. I'll give you some examples so that you can understand what each of them mean. When treaty is used as a generic term, it embraces all instruments binding at international law concluded between international entities regardless of their formal designation. In order to speak of a treaty in the generic sense, an instrument has to meet the following criteria. Firstly, it has to be a binding instrument, which means that the contracting parties intended to create legal rights and duties. Secondly, the instrument must be concluded by states or international organizations with treaty-making power. Thirdly, it has to be governed by international law. And finally, the engagement has to be in writing. Treaty as a specific form. There are no consistent rules when states practice employs the terms treaty as a title for an international instrument. Usually the term treaty is reserved for matters of some gravity that require more solemn or serious agreements. These signatures are usually sealed and they normally require ratification. Typical examples of international instruments designated as treaties are peace treaties between nations, border treaties, delimitation treaties, extradition treaties, treaties of friendship, commerce, and cooperation. As you probably know, recently there have been some issues between China and Hong Kong regarding the extradition treaty. So you should read up on it, you will understand more about it. However, the use of this term for international instruments has considerably declined over the past decade or so. Convention. Now, convention as a generic term embraces all international agreements as well. It is in a lot of way the same as the generic term treaty. So if you understood treaty, convention when used as a generic term has the same meaning as that of the treaty. It is anonymous with the generic term treaty. Convention as a specific term is initially employed for bilateral agreements. It is generally used for formal multilateral treaties with a broad number of parties. Conventions are normally open for participation by the international community as a whole or by a large number of states. Usually the instruments negotiated under the auspices of an international organization are entitled as conventions. For example, the UNCLOS. What does the UNCLOS stand for? United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. The same holds true for instruments adopted by an organization or an organ of an international organization such as the IMO. So SOLAS Convention, MARPOL Convention, FAL Convention, there are numerous conventions in the seafaring and the maritime industry that are treated as a convention as a specific term. Thanks.